Ethan's heart pounded like a drum in his chest as the counselor's voice echoed through the sterile room, declaring that his attraction to men was a curable affliction that required immediate intervention. But as he sat there, surrounded by posters of traditional family values, he never anticipated that the decision to walk away would unveil a vibrant world of acceptance, love, and self-worth he had long buried deep inside. The journey to Redemption Ridge had started with a family intervention that Ethan could still taste like bile in his mouth. It was a typical Sunday after church when his father, Robert, had confronted him in the living room, holding Ethan's phone like a piece of evidence in a trial. "What is this, son? Messages to some guy named Chris? Talking about meeting up?" The words had cut deep, and Ethan had tried to explain that Chris was just a friend from work, but the photos attached, innocent coffee meetups, told a different story to his father's eyes. His mother, Linda, had sat on the couch, tears streaming down her face, quoting Leviticus and pleading with him to repent. His younger sister, Sarah, had stayed silent, but her eyes showed confusion and pity. By the end of the day, the decision was made. Ethan was to be sent to a 2-month program at the camp to straighten him out. No discussion, no choice. The 5-hour drive was hellish. Robert drove in silence, the radio playing Christian rock to fill the void. Linda occasionally turned to offer words of encouragement. "The Lord will heal you, Ethan." This is his way of testing your faith. Ethan, 25 years old and a successful software developer at a tech firm in Columbus, stared out the window at the passing fields, his mind a whirlwind of fear and anger. He had known he was gay since he was 14, when a crush on his baseball coach had made everything click in a way that both excited and terrified him. He had hidden it well, through high school dances with girls from youth group, college parties where he avoided the topic entirely, and his current life where he kept his personal life strictly private. His job allowed him some freedom, late nights coding in his cozy apartment with city views, but the family pressure was always there, like a shadow he could never quite outrun. Now, it had all come crashing down in one afternoon of accusations and tears. When they arrived at the camp, the place looked deceptively peaceful. A cluster of log cabins nestled among tall pines, a large white chapel in the center, and high chain-link fences topped with barbed wire that made it feel more like a detention center than a healing retreat. The staff, dressed in matching polo shirts with embroidered crosses, greeted them with forced smiles that never reached their eyes. "Welcome, Ethan. We're here to help you find your way back to the path God designed for you," the intake counselor, Mrs. Graves, said as she handed him a thick schedule filled with prayer sessions, group discussions, and masculinity-building activities like weightlifting and team sports. His parents hugged him goodbye at the gate, his father gripping his shoulder a little too tightly. "Be strong, son. We'll see you in 8 weeks. Change for the better." The van drove away, and Ethan felt the weight of the gates closing behind him like a final lock on his old life. His first night was restless in the shared bunk room with 4 other men, all between 18 and 35, each carrying their own invisible burdens. There was Tyler, a loud 30-year-old construction worker from Kentucky who spoke enthusiastically about how the program had already changed him after 2 weeks. "I used to have those thoughts every day, but now I see them for what they are, lies from the enemy," he boasted during introductions. Then there was Lucas, a quiet 22-year-old from Pennsylvania, with sad hazel eyes and a nervous habit of twisting his hands, who barely spoke at all. The evening session was a circle of sharing in the chapel, the air thick with the smell of pine cleaner and desperation. Each man was asked to confess his temptations and seek forgiveness from the group. When it was Ethan's turn, he hesitated, his voice cracking as he said, "I'm Ethan from Ohio. My family sent me here because they found out I'm gay." The room went quiet for a beat, and Pastor Daniels, the head counselor, nodded approvingly. "Thank you for your honesty, brother. We'll work on that together through prayer and discipline." Back in his bunk after lights out at 10 p.m., Ethan stared at the wooden beams above him, his mind racing with memories he had tried so hard to suppress. He recalled the summer he was 16 at church camp, sharing a tent with his best friend Jake. What started as innocent late-night talks and wrestling turned into a single, tentative kiss under the stars that left him confused and guilty for weeks afterward. He had confessed to the youth pastor the next day, who warned him it was the devil's work and assigned extra Bible study. From then on, Ethan had buried it deeper, throwing himself into sports, academics, and church volunteering, dating a few girls to keep up appearances. But the feelings never left. They only grew stronger in the quiet moments, like when he would catch himself lingering too long on a male colleague's smile at work, or scrolling through profiles on apps he deleted the next morning out of shame. Now, here he was forced to confront it head-on in the worst possible way. The next morning started at 6 a.m. with a mandatory prayer meeting in the chapel, followed by a breakfast of bland oatmeal and fruit. Then came the first full lecture, Understanding the Roots of Same-Sex Attraction. The speaker, a man who introduced himself as a former struggler, now happily married with children, used slides with Bible verses highlighted in bold red. He spoke of absent fathers, overbearing mothers, and childhood wounds as the causes, urging everyone to dig deep and repent. Ethan felt his stomach churn with a mix of anger and doubt. Was any of this true? Could he really be fixed? The constant reinforcement was already chipping away at his confidence, making him question the very core of who he was. During the afternoon masculinity workshop, the group was made to do push-ups while shouting affirmations like, "I am a man of God, strong and straight in his eyes." Ethan complied mechanically, his muscles burning, but inside he felt ridiculous and trapped. By the end of the first week, Ethan had participated in healing circles where men laid hands on each other and prayed loudly for deliverance from demons of perversion. He had run laps around the property to build discipline, written letters to his inner child forgiving past influences, and sat through endless testimonials from men who claimed the program was working miracles. His parents called every evening, their voices full of hope on the crackly line. "We're so proud of you for taking this step," his mother would say. Ethan wanted to scream that he didn't need fixing, that he was the same person they had raised, but fear kept him silent. The shame was suffocating, like a heavy blanket he couldn't throw off. During a rare free hour by the small lake on the property, he sat on a bench and tried to talk to Lucas, who seemed the most approachable. "How are you holding up?" Ethan asked quietly, keeping his voice low to avoid staff ears. Lucas glanced around before replying. "It's tough. I don't think this is for me either, but you have to play along or they make it worse." Their conversation was short, cut off by a staff member reminding them of the no pairing up rule to prevent temptation. Still, that brief exchange planted a small seed of solidarity in Ethan's chest. He wasn't completely alone. As the week ended with a testimony night, where some men stood and shared dramatic changes, Ethan listened with growing unease. He felt more isolated than ever, the weight of expectations pressing down harder each day. Lying in bed that night, the distant hoot of an owl echoing outside, he made a silent vow to himself. He would not let this place break him. But the how of escaping seemed impossible. High fences, vigilant staff, and the emotional chains of his family's love. Yet, deep down, something was shifting, a quiet rebellion stirring that would soon demand action. The days ahead would test every ounce of his strength, but for the first time in years, Ethan felt the faint spark of possibility flickering to life. The second week at Redemption Ridge intensified everything, pushing Ethan further into a corner he hadn't seen coming. Group sessions now focused on breaking strongholds, with role-playing exercises where men practiced normal interactions with female staff members acting as potential dates. Ethan stumbled through the awkward conversations, his face burning with discomfort as the counselor corrected his posture and tone. "Speak with authority, like a man leading his household," Pastor Daniels would say. The exercises felt like performances in a play he never auditioned for, and each one left him drained, questioning if he could ever fake it convincingly enough to satisfy his family. Lucas's presence became both a comfort and a complication. During meals in the mess hall, they exchanged subtle nods and short whispers when staff weren't looking. Lucas shared fragments of his own story, a strict religious upbringing in a small Pennsylvania town, A first love in high school that ended in heartbreak and secrecy. I thought coming here would make my parents happy, but it's just making me realize how wrong this all feels. He confided one evening during chore time, mopping the chapel floor side by side. Ethan opened up too, talking about his tech job and the quiet pride he felt in his independence back home. Their talks were stolen moments, but they fueled a growing bond, a reminder that not everyone bought into the program's narrative. Then came the misunderstanding that shattered the fragile trust. A staff member overheard part of their conversation by the lake and reported it as inappropriate pairing. The next morning, during a special assembly, Pastor Daniels called Lucas forward. Under pressure, Lucas was forced to confess that he had been tempted by ungodly friendship and publicly apologized, distancing himself from Ethan in front of everyone. "I let the enemy use me to weaken my brother," Lucas said, his voice shaking as he avoided Ethan's eyes. Ethan felt betrayed, his chest tightening with hurt and confusion. Was Lucas just saving himself? The group prayed over them both, but the damage was done. Ethan spent the rest of the day in silence, the isolation hitting harder than ever. That night, alone with his thoughts, he replayed the scene, wondering if anyone here could be trusted or if the program was designed to turn even allies against each other. The incident triggered something deeper in Ethan, a panic that built slowly until it crashed over him during an afternoon lecture on guarding your heart. His breathing became shallow, the room spinning as memories flooded in. The shame after that kiss at 16, the nights he cried alone in college dorms, the fear of losing his family forever. He excused himself to the bathroom, locking the door and sliding to the floor, sobs racking his body. "I can't do this anymore," he whispered to the empty mirror, his reflection showing a man on the edge. The counselor found him eventually, offering prayer and a mild sedative from the camp's medical kit, but the episode left Ethan marked as struggling with resistance. More surveillance followed, extra check-ins, assigned accountability partners who reported his every mood. Despite the pressure, or perhaps because of it, Ethan's resolve hardened. He began noticing small acts of quiet rebellion among others. A man hiding a forbidden novel under his mattress, another skipping parts of the prayer by mouthing words without meaning them. During a group hike to build team spirit, Ethan lagged behind with a new acquaintance, a 28-year-old named Marcus from Chicago, who muttered, "This place is a cult dressed up as therapy. My parents think they're saving me, but they're just delaying the inevitable." Their talk was brief, but it reinforced Ethan's growing belief that staying meant losing himself completely. He started mentally mapping the camp's layout, the weak spot in the fence near the service road, the schedule gaps during evening free time, the bus stop 3 miles down the mountain road that locals used. Calls home became torture. His mother cried with joy at his progress reports. His father quoted scripture about perseverance. Sarah texted once, a short message saying she missed him and hoped he was okay, but Ethan sensed her doubt. He wanted to tell them the truth, that this wasn't healing, it was breaking, but the words stuck in his throat. Instead, he lied, saying the sessions were helping him see clearly. The guilt of that line mixed with his anger, fueling late-night plans scribbled on scrap paper he hid in his Bible. Lucas tried to apologize privately once, whispering, "I had no choice. They threatened to extend my stay." But Ethan pulled away, the betrayal still raw. The camp's rhythm continued. More sports to toughen them, more confessions, more affirmations shouted in unison. Ethan went through the motions, but inside, the decision crystallized. He would leave, no matter the cost. By the end of week 3, the spark had become a flame. During a stormy night when power flickered and staff were distracted, Ethan lay awake, heart racing with a mix of terror and excitement. The unexpected consequence of being forced here was clarity. He deserved a life without shame, without pretending. The road ahead was unknown, but staying meant certain erasure. He whispered a promise to himself in the dark, the rain pattering on the roof like applause for his courage. The escape was no longer a dream. It was his next breath. The rain had stopped by dawn on the 4th week, leaving the campgrounds muddy and the air crisp with possibility. Ethan moved through the morning routine like a shadow, his mind fixed on the plan he had pieced together over sleepless nights. Breakfast was the usual oatmeal, but today it tasted like freedom's first bite. He volunteered for the laundry shift, knowing it gave him access to the service path near the back fence. Lucas watched him with worried eyes across the table, but said nothing. Their friendship had cooled into cautious distance after the confession incident. Ethan didn't blame him anymore. Survival looked different for everyone. By mid-afternoon, during the scheduled reflection time in the cabins, Ethan slipped out with his small backpack stuffed under his jacket, a change of clothes, the $20 he had hidden in his sock, and a water bottle. The fence gap he had spotted weeks earlier was overgrown, but passable if he crawled low. His heart hammered as he squeezed through, thorns snagging his shirt, the distant voices of staff fading behind him. Once on the other side, he ran, legs burning down the dirt road toward the highway. A passing trucker slowed at his wave, and Ethan climbed in, fabricating a story about a family emergency. The driver, a kind older man from Tennessee, didn't ask questions and dropped him at the bus station in the nearest town 30 miles away. The bus ride to Pittsburgh felt like stepping into another universe. Ethan watched the mountains give way to rolling hills, then city lights, his body finally relaxing after weeks of tension. He had no plan beyond getting far enough away that they couldn't drag him back immediately. In Pittsburgh, he used a library computer to search for LGBT shelters, finding one downtown that offered emergency beds for young adults. The volunteer at the front desk, a warm woman named Carla, took one look at his exhausted face and ushered him in without paperwork hassles. "You're safe here, honey. Take a shower, get some rest. We'll talk tomorrow." That night, in a clean bunk among strangers who shared knowing glances, Ethan cried quietly into his pillow, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming relief of no longer pretending. The next days blurred into a whirlwind of adjustment. He found day labor at a warehouse through the shelter's job board, earning enough for a cheap motel room after a week. Pittsburgh's vibrant downtown surprised him. Rainbow flags in shop windows, coffee shops filled with people who looked like him, laughing openly. He attended his first real support group at a community center, where a facilitator named Dr. Patel listened as Ethan shared fragments of his story. "What happened to you is conversion therapy, and it's harmful," she said gently. "You're not broken. You're surviving." The words landed like a lifeline, cracking open the shame he had carried for years. He started journaling, writing down the feelings he had suppressed. The joy of his first secret date in college, the loneliness of hiding, the anger at his family's well-meaning cruelty. News from home came via a single call to Sarah from a payphone. "Mom and Dad are frantic. They said you ran away from the program. Are you okay?" Her voice trembled. Ethan reassured her he was safe but refused details, knowing they might trace the call. The conversation ended with her promising not to tell, but the guilt lingered. He blocked their numbers on a cheap prepaid phone he bought, severing the tie that had bound him. The city offered distractions and discoveries. A free art exhibit where he lingered on paintings of embracing couples, a bookstore with entire shelves dedicated to queer stories that he devoured late into the night. For the first time, he allowed himself to imagine a future without apology. 2 weeks after escaping, Ethan landed a temporary coding gig at a small startup through a shelter connection, the familiar click of keys grounding him. His boss, a no-nonsense woman named Mia, praised his work without prying into his past. Evenings were spent walking the riverfront, breathing in the cool air and feeling the weight lift. He met a few friends at the support group. Alex, a trans man with sharp wit, and Priya, a lesbian activist who invited him to community events. Their acceptance was casual, effortless, a stark contrast to the camp's forced brotherhood. Yet doubts crept in during quiet moments. Would his family ever understand? Was he selfish for choosing himself? The questions haunted him, but each day in the city chipped away at the old fears. The turning point came on a rainy Saturday when he wandered into a small cafe near the shelter. Behind the counter stood Jordan, a 28-year-old barista with warm brown eyes and an easy smile that made Ethan's pulse quicken in a way the camp had tried to erase. Jordan handed him a latte with a simple on the house for new faces, and their conversation flowed naturally. Music, bad movies, the best hiking spots outside the city. No pressure, no judgment. As Ethan left, he realized this was the first genuine spark he had felt since before the nightmare began. The escape had not just freed him from fences. It had opened doors to a life where his heart could speak without fear. But the road was still long, and the past had a way of catching up. Pittsburgh's autumn leaves painted the streets in gold and crimson as Ethan's new life took firmer shape, each day layering bricks on the foundation he was building from scratch. The coding gig turned permanent after his trial week, the startup's flexible hours allowing him to attend evening classes at the community college for a certification that would boost his resume. Mornings started with coffee at the cafe where Jordan worked, their chats evolving from small talk to shared laughs over burnt toast and favorite podcasts. Jordan's presence was steady, like an anchor Ethan hadn't known he needed. Never pushing, always listening when Ethan hinted at his past without full details yet. Friendships deepened too. Alex from a support group became a weekly hiking buddy, their trails through Frick Park filled with stories of resilience that mirrored Ethan's own. I came out at 17 and my folks kicked me out, Alex shared one crisp morning. Took years to rebuild, but I wouldn't trade my truth for their approval. Priya organized potlucks at her apartment, introducing Ethan to a circle of queer professionals who swapped career tips and survival jokes. These gatherings felt like family in the best sense. Chosen, affirming, free of conditions. Ethan contributed his mom's old lasagna recipe, modified with vegetables from the farmer's market, and for the first time in months, he laughed without looking over his shoulder. Work brought its own satisfactions. Mia promoted him to junior developer after a successful project launch, praising his clean code and calm under deadlines. You've got real talent, Ethan. Keep it up. The validation healed cracks he hadn't noticed, reminding him he was more than the label the camp had tried to fix. Evenings often ended with journaling or reading books from the library's LGBTQ section. Memoirs of men who had walked similar paths, their words validating the storm inside him. He started therapy with Dr. Patel once a week, unpacking the conversion experience layer by layer. It's normal to grieve the family you thought you had, she said during one session, but you're allowed to build a new one. Challenges tested his growth. A late-night call from an unknown number, his father's voice, angry and pleading, shook him. Come home, son. We can work this out through the church. Ethan hung up, hands shaking, but didn't block it immediately. The pull of old loyalty warred with his new peace. He confided in Jordan over a shared sandwich in the park one Sunday. My family thinks I'm sick. They sent me to that place to cure me. Jordan listened without interruption, then squeezed his hand. You're not sick. You're brave for leaving. I'm here if you want to talk more. The touch lingered, warm and safe, sparking something deeper than friendship. As winter approached, Ethan moved into a small studio apartment above a bookstore, the rent affordable with his raise. Decorating it became an act of reclamation, hanging string lights, placing a pride flag subtly on the windowsill, stocking the fridge with foods he loved without guilt. He volunteered at the shelter on weekends, helping new arrivals with resumes and encouragement, paying forward the kindness Carla had shown him. The work fulfilled a part of him that the camp had tried to bury, the desire to connect authentically. Lucas crossed his mind occasionally. Ethan hoped he had found his own way out, but contact felt too risky. The relationship with Jordan blossomed slowly, naturally. Walks turned into dinners, then movies on Ethan's couch where their shoulders brushed and neither pulled away. One evening, after a particularly tough therapy session revisiting the camp's shame tactics, Jordan cooked pasta and listened as Ethan poured out the details. I felt like I was disappearing there, Ethan admitted. Jordan set down his fork, eyes steady. You didn't disappear. You survived, and now you're here, shining. Their first kiss happened that night, soft and tentative under the string lights, a moment of pure connection that washed away years of denial. No rush, no shame, just two men finding home in each other. Yet the past refused to stay buried completely. An email from Sarah arrived, saying their mother was struggling with depression since his disappearance and asking if he would consider a mediated call. Ethan stared at the screen for hours, torn between compassion and self-protection. He discussed it with Dr. Patel, who reminded him boundaries were not betrayal. He replied to Sarah with a careful message. He was safe, thriving, and open to talking when ready, but not under pressure. The response brought a fragile peace, a sign that his growth was real. Pittsburgh's holiday lights twinkled outside his window as he reflected on how far he had come, from the locked gates of Redemption Ridge to a life where his heart beat freely. The unexpected gift of leaving was not just survival, but the chance to thrive in ways he had never allowed himself to dream. Winter in Pittsburgh wrapped the city in a blanket of snow, softening the edges of buildings and giving Ethan space to breathe deeper into his new reality. His studio apartment glowed with holiday lights he had strung with Jordan's help, the two of them laughing as they untangled the cords over hot cocoa. The relationship had grown into something solid and beautiful. Shared mornings with coffee and quiet talks. Evenings cooking simple meals while music played. Weekends exploring the city's museums where they held hands without glancing around for judgment. Jordan's calm confidence complemented Ethan's cautious optimism, creating a balance that felt like the missing piece Ethan had searched for his whole life. At work, the startup expanded, and Ethan's role grew to include mentoring new interns, a responsibility that surprised him with how much he enjoyed guiding others. Mia noticed his progress and offered him a raise, saying, "You've brought a fresh perspective here, Ethan. It's like you woke up." He smiled, knowing the truth behind those words. The support group evolved too. He started co-facilitating a session on rebuilding after family rejection, drawing from his experiences to help others navigate similar paths. Alex and Priya became constants, their friendship a chosen family that celebrated his milestones with pizza nights and board games. The misunderstanding that tested everything came unexpectedly during a visit from an old college friend, Derek, who was in town for business. Derek had known Ethan before the camp, back when secrets were easier to keep. Over dinner, Derek mentioned running into Ethan's parents at church. "They told me you had a rough time, but we're getting help." Sounded serious. Ethan froze, the old shame rising like bile. Jordan, sitting beside him, sensed the shift and gently steered the conversation elsewhere, but the damage lingered. Later that night, alone with Jordan, Ethan confessed the full story of the camp, the escape, the family rift. "What if I'm just running from my problems?" he asked, voice cracking. Jordan pulled him close. "You're not running. You're choosing you, and that's the bravest thing I've ever seen." The next week brought a deeper conflict when Sarah called from a new number. "Mom's in the hospital, stress-related, the doctor says. She keeps asking for you." Ethan's heart twisted. He wanted to rush to her side, but the thought of facing his father and the inevitable demands to return to the program paralyzed him. Jordan offered to drive with him if he chose to go. "No pressure. Whatever you decide, I'm with you." After long talks with Dr. Patel, Ethan decided on a video call instead, a compromise that protected his boundaries while showing care. The call was emotional, his mother tearful, his father silent in the background, Sarah mediating. "We love you, Ethan. We just want you home and whole," his mother said. Ethan replied steadily, "I love you too, but I'm whole here. This is my life now." The conversation ended in uneasy silence, but it was a step, honest, not hidden. Through it all, his bond with Jordan deepened. A weekend trip to the nearby mountains for hiking became their first overnight together, snow crunching under boots as they shared stories around a campfire. Jordan opened up about his own coming out years earlier, the supportive but distant parents he still visited sparingly. "It gets easier, but it never fully goes away," he admitted. Their intimacy that night, tender, unhurried, solidified what Ethan had feared admitting. He was falling in love. No conversion therapy could touch this truth. Back in the city, they exchanged keys to each other's places, a quiet commitment that felt monumental. Work brought a high when his project team won a local innovation award. The celebration dinner where Jordan joined as his date, marking another milestone of visibility. Priya teased him good-naturedly. "Look at you all grown and glowing." Yet the family shadow loomed. An unexpected letter arrived from his father. Handwritten, no return address, expressing disappointment but also a hint of doubt. Your mother misses you terribly. I pray every day for understanding. Ethan read it multiple times, tears blurring the ink, then tucked it away. With Jordan's support, he wrote a reply, a letter outlining his truth without blame, inviting dialogue on his terms. Sending it felt like closing one chapter while opening another. As spring buds appeared on the trees, Ethan's internal world settled into a new normal. The panic attacks had stopped, replaced by a quiet strength. He volunteered more at the shelter, mentoring young men just out of similar situations, his story becoming a beacon rather than a burden. Jordan's love provided the safe harbor, their dates ranging from quiet picnics to dancing at a local queer night. One evening, under blooming cherry blossoms in the park, Jordan said softly, "You've changed my life too, you know." Ethan kissed him, the world around them fading to the simple joy of being seen and loved exactly as he was. The journey had its scars, but they were healing into something beautiful, proving that the decision to leave had indeed revealed a life richer than any he had imagined. Spring fully bloomed in Pittsburgh, turning the city into a canvas of green and pink as Ethan's life reached a harmony he once thought impossible. The letter to his father had gone unanswered for weeks, but the silence no longer consumed him. Instead, it freed space for the present. Long runs along the river with Jordan, weekend brunches with Alex and Priya where laughter echoed freely, and quiet evenings in a studio where he coded personal projects that reflected his passions, like an app for connecting queer youth with mentors. Work flourished too. The startup offered him a senior role, recognizing how his resilience translated to innovative problem-solving under pressure. The climax arrived on a warm Saturday when his family showed up unannounced at his apartment door. Sarah had coordinated it quietly, hoping for reconciliation. Robert stood tall but weary, Linda clutching flowers with trembling hands. "We drove all night," his mother said, voice breaking. "We needed to see you." Ethan invited them in, Jordan standing supportively at his side after a quick introduction. The conversation was raw. Accusations of selfishness from his father, tears from his mother about the sin tearing the family apart, Sarah's pleas for understanding. Ethan listened, then spoke from a heart he had reclaimed. "I didn't choose this to hurt you. I left because staying would have destroyed me. This is who I am, and I'm happier than I've ever been." He showed them photos of his life, the award, the friends, the quiet moments with Jordan, without apology. His father argued scripture, but Ethan countered gently with his truth. Love isn't a sin. Hiding it was. The hours stretched into honest dialogue, Jordan adding calm insights when asked. No full resolution came. His father left still conflicted, his mother hugging him tightly with a whisper of, "I love you no matter what," but bridges were not burned. Sarah stayed longer, promising to visit again soon. As the door closed, Ethan leaned into Jordan, the weight of years lifting in a way no therapy could force. "You did it," Jordan murmured, kissing his forehead. "You faced it on your terms." The following months solidified the growth. Ethan and Jordan moved in together into a brighter apartment overlooking the river, their shared space filled with plants, books, and memories. Family calls became monthly, tentative but improving, with his mother even asking about Jordan once. Ethan continued therapy and volunteering, his story inspiring others at community events where he spoke publicly for the first time about surviving conversion efforts. The man who had trembled behind camp gates now stood tall, advocating for bans on such practices with quiet passion. One golden evening in the park where their romance had sparked, Ethan and Jordan sat on a bench watching the sunset. Jordan slipped a simple keychain into his hand, engraved with their initials, a symbol of commitment without rush. "To the life we choose every day," he said. Ethan pulled him close, their embrace warm under the fading light, laughter mixing with the distant city hum. The journey from forced confinement to this freedom had been painful, filled with sacrifice and awakening, but every step had led here, to love without shame, to family on new terms, to a self fully embraced. True or false? Escaping the pressure of who others say you should be is the only way to discover the happiness you were always meant to live?